Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello and welcome again to the Clarity Advisor Show. If you spent a few hours with hundreds of teams, you'd get some insights as to what the best teams are doing. And my guest today has done just that. As a professional business photographer, Russ Climie has spent nearly 20 years observing teams in their offices and at events. He's seen the good and the bad, what works and what doesn't, and he's here to share some of his insights and observations. So please help me welcome my very good friend, Mr. Russ Climie. Russ, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Great. Well, let's start with, I know you always talk about in terms of service. So who do you serve and what do you do for them?
It's a great question. I've been a professional photographer for nearly 20 years, and the journey is really taking me to a spot where I photograph businesses and I help make business owners and teams' lives easier when it comes to media, photo, video, different creative industries that we work in. And the best companies that I work with are out there. They're sharing photos on social and print and web. In the end, they need libraries of images. They need headshots of staff. They need photos of their teams doing what they do best, and so they can show the world what they do. And those are the clients that I've served over the past 20 years.
Great. Now, and you and I have talked in the past about what I think is a unique approach that you have to clients, because what you've discovered is that everybody's uncomfortable in front of the camera. Nobody likes having their picture taken. And so you have really found a way to make people feel comfortable. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's something I didn't expect necessarily when it came to photography. I didn't expect to have every client, whether they're a CEO or entry level first year staff member, tell me when they walk up and say, you know what, I really hate having my photo taken. It's just not something I expected to be a regular occurrence, and it's 99.9% of the clients I serve. And so what I had to do was come up with a way of creating a relationship real quick to help people get comfortable in front of the camera. And have confidence, because in the end, a photo is just a handshake. The photo, your photo online, in my opinion, is the new handshake, right? People are looking at your profile online before they maybe ever meet you in person, and so you're shaking hands with them. And so we want to make sure, or at least I want to make sure, that the photos I present help show off people having confidence and being comfortable in front of the camera. And so I was just able to come up with, some simple ways of building rapport. I mean, at the end of the day, it's people skills, right? I grew up in a world where my dad opened and ran restaurants. And so I grew up in the service industry. And so I tell folks that instead of being a bartender in the service world now, I'm just, I have a camera instead. And so I'm literally just trying to make people comfortable when it comes to meeting them in a short amount of time. I typically get 1, 2, 3 minutes with people. I don't get 2 hours with folks. And so I have to be able to build rapport quickly to help them get comfortable with having their photo taken.
Yeah. And that's for headshots primarily, right? Your people are coming in, you're getting comfortable, building some rapport, taking a few shots, and then it's on to the next person. That's generally
Correct.
Right? So,
Correct.
So what do you do exactly? I'm just curious, like what are the conversations that you're having with people to get them comfortable in literally just a couple minutes?
Yeah, it's a quick checklist in my head. I'm always going through, number one, asking them if I'm photographing a new person at a company. I always ask where they came from, right? I have the joke that I use now is, where did you mutiny from, right? Because if you came here, that means you left somewhere else, right? So where did they come from and why did they leave? Why did they choose to come here? Typically I ask about, partners, marriage, kids, those types of things, and what brought them here. Are they from the area? And that really builds rapport. I mean, it's 4 or 5 kind of basic topics that you would have at a cocktail hour, if you were out networking. And that's really what I try to do, is ask a lot of questions in a short amount of time.
And then that gets people to kind of let their guard down and put their best self forward. Is that the goal of just tell me more about like why people don't like their picture taken and how what you do transforms that interaction.
Yeah, I think the reason people don't like having their photo taken, deep down is because I think we just had Christmas, so I think they have this memory of being like 6 years old, where their parents told them with their siblings, "Hey, you will put this Christmas sweater on that I just bought you, and you will sit in front of the fireplace, and you will make sure to look happy while I take this photo of you." And the entire time, they're simply sitting there thinking, internalizing this moment of like, I hate it when mom takes the camera out and has a photo taken. And so they have this long-standing fear of not looking good on camera. And today it's more prevalent, right? We all have cell phones and we're taking selfies and taking photos, and people are taking photos of us when we don't expect it. And so we just don't know what to do, right? When folks don't know what to do at anything, whether it's home repair, right, or whether it's having your photo taken, you get nervous and just don't know what to do. And so people kind of shut down at that point. So it's just a matter of helping them get comfortable in that moment.
Okay, that's so good. And that's not the main thing I want to talk about, but I just find that so interesting that there's this universal discomfort with getting our picture taken. And you just, over 20 years, you've just seen it everywhere. It's so consistent, and it's just such a part of who people are. And I'm just curious how you go about, because you've really kind of cracked the code. And I've seen you in action. I've seen you take team photos, headshots, and also big team photos, and you get people comfortable, you get them smiling, you get it natural, and you get great photography from that. So I just find the whole thing really interesting.
Yeah,
So thanks for
I
sharing
appreciate
that.
it. Yeah, for sure. And just real quick, just one quick story. In the end, I just photographed a bunch of interns that are coming into an accounting firm here in the area. And in the end, they continually say how nervous they are. And I had to let them know, like, hey, I know you're 21, 22, 23, but I want to let you know that, like, the CEO of the $100 million company that I photographed a week and a half ago, he says the same things. So it's not like this changes between now when you're 21 and maybe when you're 51, right? Unless you are intentional about it. The beauty of the CEO is that he's willing to push through. He's willing to go through that process and emotionally work through that, fear that he has, because he knows he's the face of the company, right? And so I wanted to be able to let the young professionals know, like, yep, this is something that we got to figure out, and just keep pushing through, and it'll help get better over time as you become more successful.
Yeah, that's such good advice, and such a great opportunity for you as someone who's seen a lot to be able to mentor to those new people. And they probably don't even know the value of that advice, but it is very valuable. So that's good stuff. Well, let's now move into what I kind of teased in the opening about you having seen hundreds of teams literally in action. And when you're photographing headshots, you're getting a sense of their culture. When you're doing candid shots of an event or a team picture, you're seeing teams interact. So tell me what you've seen, some of the good and some of the bad.
Yeah, some of the good, let's put it this way: the list of good is shorter than the list of bad, right? At the end of the day, the reason you have a great show, Ken, is because the world of team building is not simple. Or I should say, it's simple, but it's not easy. And so the idea of building teams long term, the 2 or 3 things that I see over and over again with teams that I would want to be a part of, right? Because that's the beauty of me as an outside vendor. I come in and I get to have this idea of, like, is this a team I would want to be a part of? Like, would I want to come work here? And the best things, number one, is are the people I'm photographing, number one, have they been there a long time? If all of a sudden I show up to a company and I've got 22 headshots to photograph, or I'm photographing an event, and everyone's been there like 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, 18 months, like the senior leadership team is like 18 months in, and the CEO is maybe 36 months in, the youth of or I should say just how young that team is an indicator that they have a lot of turnover, right? And so it's like, all right, is there something else wrong, right? Why does everyone continue to leave? That had been here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if the company had been around that long. But so number one is how long people have been there. I know that, miles on the car doesn't, indicate that it's the best car to own, but it does show things long-term that this could be a good place to work, because people don't leave, right? I have some clients that they have folks that are there 27, 32 years, right? They just don't leave because it's a great place to work, and they have a supportive culture. So number one is how long people have been there. Number two is are people inviting their friends to come work there, right? I think that's very, very indicative of a great culture. Is if you want your friends to come work there with you, then that says that's a good place to work. I have one client who's in the software industry, and right now the world's talking about how they can't find, the business community. We can't find enough people to work. Well, when this company in the software world has one opening, they typically have 300 to 400 applications. But the last 10 people I photographed have all been internal hires, like a referral from within the company to someone else saying, hey, you know what, we have an opening, and I think it'd be something that you'd be good at. You're kind of already doing it at the company you're at currently. Why don't you come in why don't you apply? And in the end, they continue to hire those type of folks. So the idea of, instead of hiring folks that are cold to their network, they're hiring folks that are warm to their network. And then the third thing that I think really indicates what kind of culture is going to be within a team is there a person or people that part of their job is to support the internal team. The CEOs, the ownership of the companies have figured out that our first customers, our most important customers is our team, or are our team. And so they've assigned 1, 2, 3 people to say, you know what, on Thursdays, we're going to have food. We want to make sure you take care of food at lunch. You're the one that's following up with birthdays and sending out birthday gifts. You're the one delivering, there's someone delivering Christmas gifts to clients, right? The idea that there's someone has it in their job description that they're responsible for keeping, an idea, a hold on the pulse of the company internally, so that they have fun, that they have, there's cohesion, and that everybody's kind of moving forward in a way that's enjoyable rather than just doing the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great list. I want to keep going on that, and we'll do that when we come back on the other side of the break. You're with us on the Clarity Advisor Show. Stay with us.
Is your business where you want it to be, or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
Okay, we're back on the Clarity Advisor Show. We're talking with Russ Climie, professional business photographer. And Russ, you just walked through 3 indicators that you've seen over time with the hundreds of teams you've photographed, and that people need to look here. So tenure, that there's a longer tenure, and the more tenure tends to indicate a better culture. People invite their friends was number 2, and then number 3 was that there's somebody in the company that's taking care of the people, that somebody's caring for that first level team and making sure that they have their needs met, so they can in turn go ahead and meet the needs of the customers. So that's a great list. And I'd like to flip that around now and maybe have some stories of where you've walked in and seen some things that were not those 3 things, and not necessarily just the opposite, but other things that you just went, oh, that's bad, or that's not going to lead to good results.
Yeah, there's definitely, some stories that I've seen, right? I've been in hundreds of companies the past 20 years. So the first couple simple stories, going in to photograph a headshot, new global HR person, big automotive manufacturer. And in the end, as I'm photographing her, I'm trying to get her to smile and for the camera and get her natural and comfortable. And in the end, as we're getting towards the final few shots, she's like, "Hey, can we make sure to do one where I'm not smiling?" And I'm like, "Sure. I mean, is that how you want to be perceived?" She's like, "Well, I want to be able to have an additional photo so that if we have to lay off some folks, that I have a separate photo that we can send to media and we can use internally that doesn't have me smiling when it comes to layoffs." And I thought about it, I'm like, okay, like if that's what you want and that's what the PR team and marketing team wants to have, great. Happy to do it. And it just turned out that within I think 60 days, they'd laid off about 1,000 people. And I just thought to myself, man, it's an indicator, right? If senior leadership has this forethought of, you know what, I'm going to need to do things a little differently because of what might happen, it means that what might happen is actually going to happen. So that's number 1. And I would just say that number two is it for me as going into companies, and if I photograph several people, new headshots, etc. And I ask the question, okay, where did you come from? It gives me an indicator of where is it easy for people to leave. I've had several clients that ended up having 4, 5, 6, 7 people leave one tech company and go to another tech company because they simply, and I've not worked at the place they left, but it just tells me that that's not a real great place to go. Like, it's a spot that folks don't want to be long term. They'd rather be somewhere else, and they want to be together still, which is interesting. So that's number two. I'd say number three is a hidden one that I don't think I've ever actually told this story before, but I can tell the company culture when you go and look at the fridges of different places you go, right? It wasn't the thing. I think I would say at least 2005, 2010, somewhere in there. It wasn't standard to have a fridge full of drinks and energy drinks and beer and pop and Gatorade and snacks, all that kind of stuff. But it is for sure now, right? Clients that are building new facilities, they've got the kitchen, right? And it's taken care of and it's stocked all the time. But when I go and I grab a bottle of water, maybe a soda, and I go to throw something out, if the biggest pile of cans in the business, in the trash area, is like Founders All Day IPA or other beer or, hard seltzers, it goes to show that there might be a lot of fun being had at the company, and maybe that's just part of their culture. But to me, it just says, wow, interesting that folks are drinking more beer than they are water while they're at the office.
Yeah, I don't know that day drinking is ever a good sign. Like you say, maybe there's some celebrations here and there, but as a general rule, you don't want the consumption of alcohol to be the primary beverage during work hours. That's great. I love that. So you had the three things that you've seen, that each of those are indicators. Do you have an example of a company that has all three? Where have you seen all three and it was a really strong culture?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a client here in West Michigan that they're in the software world, and I started working with them when there was 4 of them. There's the 2 founders, and they had hired 2 folks, and they were in just a rented small little, like, 2-room space, basically, one for the two founders and one for the other 2 staff members, and they've transitioned in over the course of 3 or 4 spaces, and I think now they're at upwards of 50 plus staff. So they've gone from 4, right, 2 founders and a couple people to 50 plus staff. And I know they're on schedule for this year to add at least 25 more. So they're going to go from 4 to 75 in a handful of years here with a space they built out that's beautiful. And they have all of those things. They've got folks that they're hiring people that are in their warm network, or friends are bringing friends. They've got multiple staff that are responsible for taking care of that internal culture. And they've got folks like the first 2 people that I photographed are still there. And in the end, they're the leadership team now, right? They're the ones leading the teams that they've built out around these 50 other people. And it just goes to show that people don't want to leave. And so they're staying, and it means they're doing something right. And I let them know all the time. I appreciate being able to come out and be part of this and be able to document it over time. Like, that's one of the blessings of my job, is that I get to go and I've watched them go from 4 to 50, and everyone sees them at different times, but I've been there for the whole journey and gotten to document it throughout that entire, I guess it would be probably 6 years, 7 years now.
Sure. Yeah, I can see where that'd be really gratifying for you, and cool that they keep you around to keep doing that. And every time you come back, there's new people to take headshots of, right?
It's great.
So good. Well, you also have a team. I mean, you've obviously observed literally hundreds of teams, but you also have your own team. You help when you do bigger events. You need other people in there photographing with you, and you've got other service providers that you bring in to help you with your business. Tell me about the team that you have and how you interact with them, and how maybe you've applied some of the lessons that you've learned to your own team.
Yeah, it's been a blessing the past 15 years. I'd say more 10 years since I've started bringing other folks on. And in the end, we're all independent contractors, and I simply am, one of my skill sets is I'm able to go out and find the work, and I need people to help support me when we do have larger events or just multiple events throughout the day or throughout an evening. And so I've been able to just build relationships with folks. Right at the end of the day, that's business 101. It's all about relationships. And so I've gone through a lot of photographers, right? In the past 15 years, I'm sure most folks listening or watching this have met someone who said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a photographer. And they've tried it for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, but they haven't really lasted long term because they realize it's a lot harder than it looks actually than just taking photos. But in the end, I've had to work through a lot of levels of relationship with people, and I now have a group of folks who are I think there's 7 of us now that have all been working about 10 plus years. I think the youngest one is 7 years in the industry. Everyone has their own clients, but it's been a beautiful way to build relationships where I can literally just text folks and say, hey, are you available on this date at this time? I've got a client and I'm already booked. And so I'm able to bring those folks in and help them build relationships with my own clients as well. So that if I'm not available or I'm on vacation at some point, I'm able to, connect them and they're able to have a relationship with the client directly that continues to improve the relationship and provide great results.
So you've got the three things that you've talked about. You've got the tenure with your team. You've got you've got friends referring friends and building a network and using the network to find other teammates. And so how do you go about taking care of them then in that third leg?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Christmas this year just came around, and I was able to, and this is through the help of my wife. My wife has so much. She is a beautiful, beautiful, driven woman, and she happens to have some skills that I don't have, which is she's always thinking of other people. I mean, I like to think I'm thinking of other people, but she just does it naturally in a way that surpasses most others I've met. So we did Christmas gifts, specific things to places that they really like, and I know they like, and that she knows they like. So we were able to gift them some things for Christmas, and they weren't expecting that. This past year, we actually did an event on a Friday night where everybody was off, and I had them all come down to an event we called Food Truck Fridays in one of the local parks, and I think there was 16 food trucks, and it was come down, bring your kids, dinner's on us, let's hang out, just have a meal for an hour or two. People came and went as they were able to. But those types of things, right? Try to do it either quarterly or every 6 months where we get together and are able to just, build relationships across all of those people so that they can build relationships as well. I know a couple of them have done work together for different projects that have come up this past year. So really just trying to be social, right? In a world of post-COVID where we're so used to being at home and being virtual and not being face-to-face, we wanted to break that habit and be able to get together on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's so good. I love how you apply what you learn to your own team and those events, and are a great example of that. And then, like you said, you're setting an example that they can turn around and say, "Oh, this is how I feel when I work with Russ. I want to, have that same feeling for my team and on my events and my things." So it just spreads it. It's great. Well, you mentioned, the pandemic and our reaction to that pandemic. You're a photographer. That means you're getting in front of people. You can't take virtual pictures. So how did you transition through COVID, and what are you seeing now? Are events coming back, and where are things headed now?
Yeah, it was definitely a rough, I'll call it what I expected to be 8 weeks of time turned into, it was probably 14 to 16 months of just events being gone. And so for our business specifically, I mean, the way I tell it is we had 200 cancellations in about 2 weeks, and it was devastating, right? And so, but have great clients, and they kept us busy with virtual events and different video projects and different photo projects that we were able to go do throughout that time. But once restrictions lifted in Michigan, I will say that the last 18 months have been people trying to make sure, hey, do you want to come back, right? Do you want to come back to this event? We'd like you to come back to this event. We're planning this event. Would you please come? And in the end, I'd say that there's a transition in the last 90 days of people being comfortable, fully being comfortable and back. And now folks and clients are trying to figure out innovative ways to engage going forward, right? The way to describe it is if you think about 2015 to 2019, we had this massive boom of events that just kind of went and faster and faster and faster. Innovation was happening. There was momentum. At least in our business, we had all kinds of momentum those 5 years, and then it just shut down. And so it went back to zero basically, other than virtual. And in the end, as people are coming back, that momentum has started again, and now it's really back to that innovative time where folks are coming back. events are selling out. There's record crowds everywhere because people want to be back. They want to see the people they haven't seen in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were wired for connection and we want to be together. And as soon as we could, we were getting together with family and friends. We didn't continue to be on Zoom with them. And yet, in some instances, we continue to do that as employees and teammates. But I am seeing more people wanting to get together, be in the office, go to events, all the things that you're sharing there. So, well, Russ, I know that you're a learner. You're always reading and consuming things to make yourself better so that you can share wisdom with your clients and with your associates. So what are some things that you're consuming these days, either podcasts or books or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so I'm going back reading some of the classic books that really helped me, 15 plus years ago. One right now, most people, I don't know if people know about it, but it's a book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and it's really just about expanding your creative mind. It's written, I think, in the 1950s, so it's a classic. It was handed to me 15, 16 years ago, and it's one of the most impactful books that I've read in the business world. So I'd highly recommend that one. I am a big fan of podcasts. Obviously yours, Ken, others that I listen to on a regular basis. I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. His podcast is Akimbo. It's like 9-minute episodes that are very, very, digestible in a short period of time. And he's been doing it for 5 years. He's got lots and lots of content out there. From a story perspective, one of my other favorite podcasts that's not necessarily business related, but I would kind of call it business related, is Mike Rowe, The Way I Heard It podcast. And I'm not necessarily a fan of his new stuff because they're longer format, hour and a half, 2 hours. But his original, I think 200 episodes were like 7-minute stories about people in the world that you've heard of all of them more than likely, but you just didn't know it. So I highly recommend those 2 podcasts.
Oh, fantastic. That's really good. So, Russ, who should reach out to you and what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so if folks are looking for someone to make their photo life easy, that's who I work with, right? I want to be the easy button for clients, help them feel comfortable, help them feel confident, help make their business better, all while making it a simple process. Best way to reach me is through my website, TiberiusImages.com, spelled TIBERIUS images.com. And LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me on social. I've been very impressed with the world of LinkedIn the past couple of years, very active there. So I'd love to hear from folks.
Yeah, you are active there and you post photos and I love to see those. And sometimes I know people and most of the times I don't know the people, but what always strikes me is that they look genuinely happy. I mean, other than the CEO who doesn't want to be smiling because she's going to lay a bunch of people off, but the rest of the people are genuinely happy. I mean, we have good radar as people for when it's a genuine smile and what's that kind of fake cheese smile. And everybody's genuinely happy in your pictures. And I love seeing those. And I love your posts. You're active with just thoughts about business and sometimes just thoughts about life, not just photography. So I appreciate all that stuff. We'll put the links to your contact information and those books as well. And into the show notes so people can get a hold of you and get a hold of those resources. So listen, brother, I appreciate you so much. This has been such a great conversation. I love hearing the stories and I know you've seen so much and it's great to have you pull that together for us and say, here's some indicators of good culture and good team interaction and what I've seen that works and what I've seen that doesn't. So thank you so much for being here and sharing all that with us.
Happy to, Ken. It's been great getting to know you. Appreciate being on the podcast.
All right, good enough. Well, Russ, I'm sure we'll be talking soon. And I thank everybody for watching or listening to this episode of the Clarity Advisors Show. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisors Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.